Hi, everybody. It's Patricia Coughlin here to talk to you today about the technique of portraiting. Portraiting feelings and impulses. Why do we do this? When do we do it? And how do we do it? So, we always want to start with our why. Why would we want to do this? Why would we want to use the imagination to portrait or visualize how feelings and impulses would want to be expressed, right, if there was no restraint? Well, the primary why is because the repression of these feelings is often responsible for the patient's symptoms and suffering. And the actual experience, the visceral experience of anxiety laden, guilt laden feelings and impulses has been found to be the trigger that unlocks the unconscious, which is the seat not only of the origin of the problem, but also seems to be the the place, right? If you could say that the healing force, the unconscious therapeutic alliance, gets mobilized. So, since we are endeavoring to get to the bottom of the patient's difficulties, to the source, which is often unconscious, using this technique of portraiting is a very reliable way to get there. So, when we are able to identify a symptom generating situation and begin to put the patient on the two triangles, asking about what kinds of feelings are coming up toward the person involved, while we're monitoring anxiety to make sure it's in that optimal zone, and then helping the person see and turn on and give up the defensive avoidance they've been using, so that they can actually get in touch with and feel the feeling that they've been avoiding. And once we do that, we're going to watch the body for signs and signals that the impulses, the action tendencies that accompany that feeling are actually mobilized. So you'll often see a fist, or the person's biting their lip, or clenching down in their jaw, or kicking their foot. So as soon as we start to see that kind of mobilization, say if we're going for anger, then we would ask, okay, so you can feel that anger and it seems to be coming into your fists. So if that came out without restraint here toward me or toward your husband or whoever it's toward, in your imagination, what does that anger want to do? So, again, this is a liminal space that we're creating. I think Freud called it a playground, that we're creating a therapeutic space where the person can face their raw and scary impulses without anybody getting hurt. So, typically, the problem is that the patient represses these feelings and impulses and turns it against the self. They end up, with a headache, or even cutting themselves, or depressed and attacking themselves verbally, or else they act out and they actually hurt other people or break laws and do things that get them into all kinds of trouble. So we want to create this safe space where the person can face, experience, and then imagine expressing these not just feelings but also impulses in their imagination, right? And that again seems to be the key that will unlock the unconscious. So, since again we are never going for just one feeling like anger, but complex mixed feelings, once the person has experienced and expressed, let's say, the rage, and they're punching and kicking and maybe even stabbing the person in the heart, and then it's out of them, they say, the anger is spent. We don't end there. We want to look at, well, wow, so what's the impact that that's had? And we want to be very specific. This is where the portraits are not random and people are not really making it up. They might say, gosh, it's almost like a movie. I can see it just unfolding in front of me. They will see the hair do and the color of the eyes and the position of the body. And as they do, and as you help them, really paint that picture. I mean, you want to be able to see it in your mind's eye. Then they will often spontaneously make a link to someone else. Either directly say, oh my God, that's my mother's eyes, or I had a case recently where the initial violent impulse was also accompanied by a sexual assault. And when that was done, I asked the person to look at my body, and they described the body in great detail and specifically said it's a young body, like in the 20s. Well, I am not young. So again, I know it wasn't me. So at that point, even though he didn't spontaneously, I said, who has that young, beautiful body with those breasts? And, and then he immediately was able to connect to who that was. So again, the portraiting and seeing very specifically the effect of the assault, looking at the face, and then as the person sees both the impact and then often who else this body represents, there'll be an upsurge of painful, grief-laden, guilt-laden feelings. And those feelings, really all feelings, have an action tendency. So when the person is in touch with this grief and then the guilt, oh, how could I have done this? I ask, what does that feeling want to do? And they might say, oh, I just want to, pick her up and cradle her, and then I'm so sorry. So there's then this repair attempt, because the guilt is also connected to love, right? There are positive feelings there. And so to have such violent impulses and such rage towards someone you love is going to bring up guilt. So you really want to pay attention to the specifics in this portrait, in this imagination, because there are often many clues as to the unconscious source. I will often ask, where is this happening? And someone will say, I don't know, but there's this brick wall that was smashing first your head against and then my mother. So what kind of brick wall? Oh, like a brick house. Oh, did you ever have a brick house? Yes, until I was 5. Okay, so that's letting us know that this primitive rage was from this young time. So again, no matter what the particular feeling is, love, sexual feelings, angry feelings, right? As soon as they're experienced in the body and impulses are mobilized, we then use the imagination or the portrait to safely examine those feelings and impulses. And this really seems to be quite a reliable route to opening the unconscious. And we're going to get a lot of material shedding light on the origin of the patient's conflict. And so that what was buried comes to light, and we can rework and reprocess, right? The feelings and also the thoughts, the decisions, the meaning that in many cases the child had ascribed to these. So that can all be revisited and revised. So I hope this is helpful to you. A subscriber asked about this particular intervention, so I wanted to speak to that. And if you have any questions or comments, I welcome them. Thanks. Bye-bye.